Welcome back to KC Grid Talk, episode number 49. As always, my name is Caleb Vieska, and this week we're previewing the Stars Championship Series as well as a little more. And hot off some great news, I should say, Mr. Emery Lida joins me tonight. Alex is going to join us later on. He's had a long day for sure, but Emery, first of all, welcome on to the show. I think the shirt says it all so far. I want to say congrats and tell us a little bit about it, man.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, been kind of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth ever since SCUSA Houston. So we went to Arizona on Monday and Tuesday, immediately following Pro Tour. Visited Arizona State, visited Florida State on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. And yeah, decided I'm going to Florida State for law school. So that was a difficult but yet very fulfilling decision, and got a lot of studying coming up ahead. But for now, can enjoy it, can wear rep the merch on Grid Talk, and it's been nice kind of catching up and sort of catching my breath a little bit the last couple of days.
Yeah, I bet. And I feel like even in the last couple of days, as much as, catching your breath, you've kind of tried to do. There's a lot of news that have come out from the karting paddock so far, from USPKS, from Stars. And we obviously had SCUSA not too long ago. So we're right in the thick of it, right? We're in the middle of it all. So there's a lot to talk about. We're gonna wait for setting the grid. It's gonna be at the end of the show, we should say, with a lot to kind of debrief as well of stuff and news that came out this week. So we're going to get into that when Alex joins us later on. But how about our very special guest tonight, Mr. Ian Quinn, joining us here on the show. First of all, Ian, welcome to the show. Where are you right now, my man? Because it looks like you've been pretty busy out in school, huh?
Yeah, I'm currently at the University of Akron FSAE shop. We had our vehicle dynamics meeting tonight, so I decided why go home when I can spend it in one of my favorite places. So, thanks for having me on, guys. It's real exciting to be on the KC Grid Talk tonight and discuss some go-karting.
There you go. And I know we want to hear kind of a lot about your progression too. I do want to address Christian's kind of message here. I did put stuff. I was going to wear my other shirt, which actually, says the whole thing, but I didn't have tape to block out just that last word. So didn't wear it tonight. But yeah, indeed, it is a different word than stuff. But hey.
Christian.
We we want money from this show, not a strike against us. So
Exactly. We don't need to get demonetized 49 episodes in. Well, soft as can be, but let's actually dive in here, Ian, to your story. We haven't had you on the show yet. We've had Mark on, but I'm interested to hear, how did you kind of get started in karting? How did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so I my dad had a friend who his son's race karts at a Thompson Kart Raceway, circa 2012, 2013 time. So we showed up for one of those night races. They were racing a lot of Briggs over there, a lot of speedway bodies, kind of real kart bandit kind of stuff. And I was hooked immediately. I saw all the glow lights on the go karts, and I was like, 8-year-old mind. I was just super attracted to it. So next weekend we bought a chassis. We 11 years later, I've progressed through Briggs, through Yamaha, through KA and X30, and now we're doing shifters. So it's definitely been a long journey, but it's taken me to a lot of places, and it's definitely fueled my interest in cars. So
When was when was that step up to shifter for you, Ian?
I've my first shifter races were in 2022. They were almost running exclusively in the stars stuff. I ran Vegas once, but that didn't go too well. But we've just been chipping away at it very gradually, having just starting out by ourselves, learning what we can as an independent father-son team, and then making the switch to PSL in 2024 was a really big deal for me. I was having professional coaching, somebody focusing on my engine, somebody focusing on the chassis, and somebody to bounce ideas off of. It was a really good environment to be in, and it's I mean my results spoke for it. It's a big jump in my results. So shifter's definitely been fun, and it's only going to go upwards from here.
Yeah, also, I mean, talk about those results, right? Because last year, I think for the first round of stars was the first time I really saw you I don't want to say breakthrough, but that was like one of the first races where you put yourself up at the front. I think you finished second that race, if I'm not mistaken, Ian. What was that weekend like? Obviously, like you said, the transition over to PSL.
Well, I'm gonna admit I was a little bit scared going into that weekend because I up until that point I hadn't been in a shifter cart for a while. Ever since I'd done a couple testing weekends at Newcastle, but ever since September of the year before, I hadn't really driven a gear cart. So I was I was going in there, a little bit cold turkey, not really knowing what to expect, especially with a new team. But immediately out from the gate, we were fast. I learned a lot of stuff in the first few practice sessions about my brake bias and my downshifting and how I should be driving into the corners. Maybe my time out of the cart really helped me because it gave me the opportunity to break some bad habits that I had been forming in the years before. So, and I'm going to admit, when we put it a thousandth off of AJ in qualifying, I really did not expect that. I was When Mark was showing P2 over the fences after I pulled in, I was like, "What? That can't be. That can't be." But it was true, and then we followed it up with the rest of the weekend. So, like you said, it was a real breakout weekend. Learned a lot, and I was happy to be able to carry over that momentum into the rest of the season.
Exactly. So I guess now looking forward to the year that we have ahead, what are your goals here in 2025?
Well, my goal in 2025 is to win. That's the one thing I didn't do last year. I had a really good average finish over the races I ran. A bunch of P4s, a bunch of P3s, a bunch of P2s, and it was definitely a bunch of good results. But it's missing a P1, right? So I really need to hunker down and focus on breaking through to the win, figuring out what's stopping me from getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just want to take it back to your journey a little bit because you've driven a lot of different engine packages. I mean, even once you got up to shifter, you still kind of maintain a focus in 206. We've seen you running X30 in 206 at the same time. We've seen you running Yamaha in 206 at the same time, KA and X30 at the same time. It feels like you've driven just about every single variant of package here. And I guess, how much do you think that's helped you as a driver over the course of the last few years to kind of have all that different exposure and all that different, I guess, racecraft experience?
Well, it gives me so many different angles to go at things. Say in shifter, going into hairpins and tight corners, downshifting early, using the engine braking in a certain way, that really helps. But in certain other corners, let's say fast corners like turns 1, 2, 3, and 4 at Newcastle, or other situations where you don't need to slow down as much, people they don't know what to do a lot of the times in the shifter cart, and the Briggs racing and the focus on momentum and a lot of stuff like that gives me a great angle to try different things going into those corner sections, and really give myself a good opportunity to do something different from everybody else that might give me an edge.
Yeah. And what made you decide to go into shifter racing back in 2022?
I I worked for Magic actually. I was the tuner for Chubba, the owner of Magic, Chubba Boidoso, and I was enthralled from the beginning. I was like, man, it looks so fun, and Robbie Boidoso, he said it right. You Once you go to shifter, you can't go back. So eventually, a couple days later, I drove my first shifter cart, and then I entered in a club race, and it just started snowballing from there. I got to drive these more. I got to keep getting better. The first races weren't really that good. I mean, you can ask Billy, you can ask so many different people. They'll say it takes a while to get good in a shifter cart, and I agree with it. But it was an itch I needed to scratch.
And what do you think over the course of the last 3 years is the biggest thing that you've learned from day one to now where you will come in as one of the favorites into 2025 in the Star season?
I'll pick up a quote from one of my favorite movies, Days of Thunder, and it's tires are what wins races. Okay, you really got to manage your tires in the shifter cart, in the Briggs, in the KA, and to an extent in the X30. More so, you do have to manage them, but um, you really need to you need to have a mind on your lines, how much you're turning, how squirrely you are in the braking zones, you, really how much how much you're wasting your tires when you're really driving it hard in the shifter kart, and finding the balance between, well, do I want to get that extra spot in front of me, gain that distance now, or do I want to leave some pace on the table for later so that it'll help me? So it really took a while for me to figure that out, and I'll still say I probably haven't, but at the same time, it's a it's a real trick to be able to figure out how to manage your tires effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that really paid off for you down the stretch last year as well at Charlotte. I want to ask you about the dynamic at PSL now because you have Mateus Morgado racing stars this year. You've got J. Irwin under the tent. You guys have kind of a absolutely stacked all-star team of shifter drivers. Are you on the side of liking having those teammates, having kind of the all-star lineup, or are you kind of more of a solo shot wanting it to be just you? Because I know like you said, you and your dad did it by yourself for so long and kind of didn't have the teammate aspect.
Well, I think that, it goes back to a bunch of different angles. If you have different input from different people that have different driving styles, you can, you can pick and choose what they're doing better, what I'm doing better. You can say, well, I don't really like what they're doing, so I can try this. It's always great to have more input. Sometimes having too much input can cloud everything up a little bit, but it's always good to have a bunch of different angles to go at your weekend with. So I'm really excited. I get along real well with Mateus. I get along real well with Jay, and I get along real well with the entire PSL tent. They, we it's a real symbiotic relationship that we have. So I'm really prepared to work together with them this weekend, and also with Mark Steele at the Steel Motorsports tent. We're Me and Talon. We're going to be operating out of that tent this weekend. We're going to be cooperating heavily with PSL, but we're with the Stealth chassis that you've probably seen
Yeah.
in some of the CKNA events. We're going to be championing that this weekend. We're going to bring it to the front. We're going to be working heavily with our PSL guys, and we're going to be showing our stuff off.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the stealth chassis as well. I don't think did you drive CKNA? I don't think you did, right? You were working that weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I was doing data for Steel Motorsports on the Spring Nats weekend, so it was the weekend that they debuted the Stealth chassis. And I think it looks killer.
Are you gonna bring your steering wheel with you? Put it
Oh
on
yeah,
the new stealth chassis.
yeah. I'm gonna bring my special steering wheel. My it's a superstitious thing. I
Talk about talk about that a little bit because it's a comp cart steering wheel, but you take it to whatever cart you're driving. I guess in any given weekend, it feels like.
Yeah, my reasoning behind it is that it's a little bit bigger than the regular Burrell wheel. So with the kind of steering forces that you get in a shifter cart, especially with having to take your hand off the wheel to downshift going into corners, that puts a bunch more stress on your arms, especially your left arm. And even then, the greater cornering force that you experience in the shifter cart because you're accelerating, you're stopping harder, you're accelerating harder. You know, your mid corner forces are harder because you have a lot more grip in the chassis. It's makes it a little bit advantageous to have a little bit more leverage on the wheel. Having a bigger steering wheel like the comp cart, it's just it's a little bit of playing around with what I can do.
Yeah, and I guess on that topic of we were talking about the stealth chassis and what's new with that. When did you and Mark actually meet, and how has that relationship been? Because you're obviously working for him. I know he was your mechanic last year, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So, how's your relationship with Mark been throughout the years, and when did you guys even meet?
Mark and I met in 2020 at a Rock Cup Pompano race. Yeah, he was working for people under the PSL tent. I was racing for Austin, Queen, and Briggs in the QG3 karting tent. And we're both big snowmobilers. That was one thing that me, Mark, and my dad all really are really connected on, and we just started talking. Had a lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same opinions, and come 2022, I went to race up for Mark in Canada, a Goodwood and a Briggs race in the CKNA Canada series, and he announced to me and my dad, "Hey, I'm moving to Cleveland, and I'm starting up my new team, Mark Steel Racing," which eventually became Steel Motorsports. And we were like, we were ground level. We were like, "We want in on this, man. We want to work with you." And so That was the end of 2022. Team made a big debut in 2023, beginning of 2023, and just exclusively CK&A Break stuff, and it's just been ballooning from there, man. So me and Mark, we're like this, so we get along real well, and we're gonna take Still Motorsports to the next level.
Yeah. So, and from talking to Mark, he says it's just a regular bro chassis, just kind of his little touch on it with the colors and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very similar to a Charlotte Leclerc chassis. It's black, but it's it appeals to a different crowd. It appeals to the Briggs Racer crowd a little bit more. It's may I say, a little bit more badass.
Hey, stars is this weekend. You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Yeah, so we'll do cool for Christian watching. We're here to do cool shit. We're gonna be badass while we do it.
There you go. Emery?
Yeah, I mean, Ian, you kind of have a badass story in your own right. I mean, with Mark and the relationship you guys had originally running CK&A, I mean, how how much has it meant to you to kind of be sort of on the other side? Because you've driven a lot, you've done a lot of driving over the years, a lot of, I would say, kind of personal development on your own end. But now to kind of be a centerpiece of building a team like Steel Motorsports, I mean, how much does that mean to you? And seeing how that team's developed over the last couple of years.
It's a big learning experience, man. Mark's been in this game for 40 years now. He's been a champion in Canada, I think 4 times, and I have a lot to learn from him. But just seeing the development of the chassis, being able to talk with customers, having a big hand in the social media and everything. So, I've been able to learn a lot of remedial stuff about managing a team. A big startup like this. It's been like I said, a big learning experience, and I've been really excited to take it on with Mark. And we're like I said, we're gonna really plug it this weekend at Stars. We got a couple big ringers coming in. We got Talon running with us. We got Henry running in OKN. We got Lida doing all our sticker kits and everything. So
Different one.
yeah, a different Lida, Ben Lida.
Yeah.
But yeah, but we're I'm really excited to see how the stealth chassis is going to pan out, especially knowing that we have support from Dami at PSL and Ronnie Sala at Burrell.
Yeah, and going forward for yourself, I mean, you mentioned how much has helped you understanding the management side. I mean, you're balancing a busy student load as well with the Formula SAE stuff at Akron. I mean, in the future years, what are your kind of goals when it comes to racing and working around the industry going forward?
Honestly, it's a pipe dream to be a racing car driver as an occupation, and I know we all want to do that. But quite frankly, I want to be at the racetrack. I want to whether it's working in the pits, whether it's doing data for people, whether it's driving. I want to be at the racetrack because I feel like that's home. It's home for a lot of us, and they say that work isn't work if you enjoy it, and so I want to enjoy my work.
Was there really a point where that kind of clicked for you over the years, where you can remember like really like, hey, this is, as opposed to this being like I want to be a racing driver, I want to just be having fun, to suddenly like this is somewhere where I can see myself, making a living working beyond just driving?
I'd say if there was one definitive moment, it was the time I coached somebody for the first time. It was I think it was JJ O'Neill in Daytona in 2020 or 2018. I was friends with the family. I was going on a track walk, and the dad said, "Hey, can JJ go with you?" I'm like, "All right." So we walked the track. I pointed out to him the apexes and the lines. I showed him where the rubber is, and I showed him, where the bumps were, what to avoid. And you can tell he learned a lot because he did good the next day. But to backtrack, we walk into the pits, and I drop JJ back off at his trailer, and his dad hands me a $20 bill. And I'm like, wait a sec. I can make money off of this. This can be a future.
Yeah.
So, and that, I take a lot of pride in coaching for people of all ages. Um, it's experiencing wins and podiums and great drive through the pack vicariously through other drivers. It really sits well with me.
What's been the hardest thing about coaching? Do you feel like, Ian?
Sometimes I feel like I'm just not getting what I want to say across to the driver. You know, I feel like I say repetitive things, try to change it up sometimes, and they keep doing the same thing. And it's a real challenge to try and say something one way, they don't get it. All right, use a different example this time. They get something else, or they need to hear something else, and it's a challenge to really play with your words like that. But I'm all for it, and usually I end up getting it done. So, especially with the younger drivers, just trying to break things down and put things in a bite size, something that they can digest, without using super complicated terms.
Yeah. I want to take it back to the Daytona story because for me, I remember the year before that, I think it was 2017, was the year that you had a really good run there in Yamaha, in a
Well,
Yamaha
that
Junior.
was the you're talking. That was the same year. I was an
Same year
XC.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like at that point, right, it was just you and your dad. You were on, I think, yeah, it was you and your dad. You were racing on the Tony kart at that point, and that was like kind of the breakthrough for you. Because I remember I had a similar thing the year before where I had gone on the podium like for the first time at a national at Daytona in 2016. You come
Yeah.
back, you get on the podium in 2017. I mean, at that point in your career, it had just been you and your dad, and you were just running Yamaha at that point.
So
How
yeah.
much
So
had, yeah, how much had that helped? Did that help your confidence in knowing now that you went from being sort of, I would say, mid to upper pack in a national level field to suddenly being at the front? And did you expect it to kind of come on that quickly and be competitive that much from the get go in the national scene?
Well, the 2017 was my first year national racing. It was one of the first years that I actually ventured out from my home track at Thompson. And, I spent 5 years there just racing Briggs and building my residual skill set. And it was definitely a slow progression. But earlier in that year, I had gotten I think a P4 at GoPro in the Yamaha Junior, so I definitely knew that things were on the up and up. But I'll tell you what, um, Christmas that year, and Daytona always happens. The
Yeah,
day after, 2 days after Christmas, I got a new helmet. I got in a ride with a
it was
centipede.
the Senna one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that gave me a big boost of confidence. I was like, man, I'm rolling up now. People are going to be looking at me. I'm going to have this nice bright helmet. They're gonna notice me so much, and then boom, I'm fast. I'm like, well, that's that's how it goes, I guess. So
It's the Senna helmet, man. Gave you the
yeah,
2 tenths.
I'm telling you,
I know.
painted helmets like get you fast quick.
I know. Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
people start looking at you, and when you know that they're looking at you, you feel like you got to perform. So
I like so speaking on that, you actually I think you wore your carbon helmet 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
Let's kind of get into that a little bit because I feel like 2 weeks ago you had I think one of the roughest weekends out of anybody else in the paddock.
Oh yeah, that weekend was pretty rough. Um, we ended practice in happy hour P5 out of 43 carts, and I was really pleased with that. And we had some good momentum rocking into Saturday for to start the real weekend, and then we make a big blunder in qualifying. We accidentally put the wrong gear on, and I'm going out the session like I can't roll second. I don't know what's going on, and we accidentally put on a super long ratio, so I had to use first for 5 different corners on the track, and we ended up 20th. And we were able to make it work in the end. The cart still drove kind of good, but 20th isn't where I wanted to be. So come the heat races, want to make up those spots. I'm being super aggressive on the starts, and I get caught up in that pile up in heat one, so that's a DNF. In heat two, I'm making up spots. We get to about lap 8, and I'm about 15, 16 spots up. And then I make contact with a driver who I didn't even see. He was behind me going into the final hairpin. Hopped wheels go up in the air, fly off the track, DNF for heat 2. I get to the pre-final. I'm starting last. Get 10 laps in. I've made up 20 spots, and then my rear sprocket explodes. So DNF in that race as well, and I'm starting last for the final again. Then, as we go to warm up our engine for the final, it doesn't crank. We're not getting spark. So in the space of about 3 minutes, the amazing PSL tent with Damian, Patrice, and Nick, they all pull together and they change the entire wiring harness on the engine. They get it started up, and as everybody's staging up for their start, push me out there, and I get my tires warmed up, and I finally make the race. So, and there were a couple, they had to get the engine on so quickly that there were a couple little mistakes with getting it on, especially with the gear linkage. But the fact that they were able to get that together in time was just crazy. And so it was a real comeback story in spite of the luck that we had that weekend. But it was a big character builder. Walk away with a smile on my face, saying, "Hey, I had a good time, learned a lot." And take that into the next event.
Yeah, and you were the biggest mover that race as well, right?
Yeah. I was I don't know if I started last. I don't know if that was 43rd or 40th, but yeah, 17 to 20 spots. So
nice. And you kind of talked about it, a fresh start this weekend. How do you shake that weekend off? How do you put it behind you? How do you forget about it and reset for what's a new challenge here this weekend?
Well, I know Charlotte. I was just doing data for everybody at the Briggs race and the Spring Nationals, so I'm really comfortable at that track. I know in my heart that I had the pace at Houston with the good performance in happy hour and climbing up through the field. I know that I have what it takes to put myself at the front, especially how last year went. I'm really prepared for the event mentally and physically. I've been going to the gym a lot. So, just trying to build up all of my support, from people, from myself, and I think we have what it takes to really put it up front this weekend and finally break through to the W.
All right, Ian. Well, at the end of our segment here, when we have guests on, we usually give you guys the floor, talk about where we can find you on social media, what you have coming up, any coaching that you're doing. The floor is all yours, and publicize yourself, or promote yourself, I should say, is the better word. That's the right word, as much as you'd like.
Well, thank you. My name's Ian A. Quinn. You can see my Instagram tag over there, IA Quinny. Give me a follow, give me a shout. I'll, talk about stuff, I guess. I don't know. My Instagram, or not my Instagram, my Facebook, Ian Quinn. Go out there, starting an OnlyFans soon, so make sure you tune into that. So, but we're get that social media going. I do a lot of coaching for Steel Motorsports and privately too. So if anybody's interested, give me a shout in the Midwestern area at a pit race. Got 2 new big tracks opening up in Lorain and Quaker City Motorsports Park. So I'm gonna have a packed summer, but anybody wants to do some coaching and practicing during the week, on track, off track, I can bring a Smarty Cam. I can bring a bunch of different data tools to make sure that you're turning faster lap times. So, but thank you, Kart Chaser crew. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, there you go. That was a great little promo bit. I like that. That was good. That was good. Well, Ian, Emery and I really enjoyed it. I know Alex is in the green room right now. He enjoyed it as well. But thank you, man. And these boys will see you this weekend. I unfortunately will not, but it's been a pleasure.
All right. I'll miss you, Caleb, but thanks everybody.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you. I'll miss you too, man. Well, there you guys had from me and Quinn. We have a little commercial break on our side when we're back. Alex joins the show, and we dive into everything that's new in the U.S. karting scene. I should say new, or news, I should say, we have coming up. But we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR, with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I went to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
That's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
But you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all of the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
DPK Americas is bridging the gap between the U.S. and the 2-time world champion DPK Alonso Kart factory team in Europe.
In partnership with Team Binnick, they offer drivers a complete career path from the Americas to Europe that allows them to continue their driver development on both sides of the world, all underneath the DPK umbrella.
For more information, contact DPK Americas at max@drivensm.com to take the next step in your driver development journey today. Hey, welcome to the show.
Dude, I have no words for the day that I have had. I can't believe I'm moving here. I don't even think my mic's hooked up correctly. But yeah, roadside for, I don't know, 5 hours, try to get the parts for my car, wouldn't work. Ubered, 20 minutes in traffic for the Uber. So it was like an hour and a half ride from Miami. If anybody here watching is from Miami, you guys know how bad the weather was today and how bad the traffic was. So yeah, I got here like, I don't know, 7 minutes ago. I actually cannot believe I made the show, but I'm excited. I got to watch the last half of that interview. So that was pretty good. Also my phone died. So that's why like I had zero communication to you guys, but, yeah, I'm in an Uber with no charger. So yeah, what a day, but we're here and we're going to talk ball or go-karts. Also, shout out real quick. I had to. Gator Nation, we stay hot. Let's go.
What was I going to say? One thing, and this is super nitpicky, which we can get into it now, but I know that your mic is on your computer mic right now, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, the only reason I'm doing that, and I have this on for the perception that I know what I'm doing. The only reason that I don't have my mic plugged in right now, and I know it's not plugged in, is because shout out Mac for only having 2 USB-Cs, and one of them is my Elgato, and one of them is my charger. So I literally cannot hook up my mic right now, but when my computer gets to a decent battery, we will have better mic quality.
All right.
Wow.
Perfect.
Also, if you saw a car in Miami somewhere today on the side of the road and some reasonably short individual crashing out,
He's
there's
had
a
a
high
long day.
chance.
He's had a long day. Come on
High
now.
chance. Hey, he got a national championship last night. Anything counts, you know?
Yeah, I guess so.
At what cost?
Hey.
At what
hey.
cost?
All right, dude, I love this new soundboard, but there's a lot to talk about, boys. Let's just dive into setting the grid. Emery, if you want to pull it up, and we'll talk about kind of everything that's come up now. First of all, big news coming out of the United States Pro Kart Series, and that is that they're a new X30 prize structure, so up to $32,000 in cash prizes to the top 10. 20 carts, $13,000, payday. You go to 30 carts, $19,000, $26,000, and so on and so forth. And we were, and I really have to say, whenever we were on the show after USPKS boys, we talked about the differences and what we're seeing with other series, what we saw with SCUSA, and what we were seeing with USPKS. And I think, this is the exact response that you needed to give back to your customers and to the guys inside of the top 10. So I think that's great. And a huge round of applause to the entire USPKS team, because I know it's not easy, but this shows, to me, that they're all for change and they're all for caring. So I think this is great.
Yeah, I mean, that show a couple weeks ago, we mentioned how ultimately it would take a lot of work to sort of continue to build the perception in the public of what USPKS is as a national series and continue to kind of stamp their authority, because X30 numbers have been down for quite some time within the series. The overall numbers have been declining a little bit as well, but this is a massive step in the right direction. I think when you kind of put that much cash on the table, and it's a tiered incentive-based list. If you go to kind of the overall market, and I apologize for the small font there, I want to try to get all of the different prize structures in. At the top with 20 entries and $13,000 total in the pool, you're still talking about different prizes that range from sixth place up to first place, with a few $1,000s going to the winner. And then if you get all the way up the list to 50 entries, having upwards of 10 grand for a single race in a weekend is ludicrous for a first place prize. Like,
That's huge.
That's money that exceeds what we've seen from Pro Shifter at Supernats. It's money that beats just about any season-long prize package for a series dating back to the early 2010s. So this is huge for USPKS. I think it's one thing to attach kind of a token cash prize. As Andrew likes to mention, ultimately, there's very few people that turn a profit from winning races. You'd have to be 2023 Joe Turney levels of dominant to even have a shot to do that in terms of the cash sales. But USPKS raising this much individual prizes for one race weekend and one race is incredible. And so, I mean, to have a $10,000 for a 50 cart field for the winner is pretty insane. To have it all the way down to 10th for 30, 40, and 50 cart fields, phenomenal work from them. I think personally this is going to boost the numbers. It may not be an immediate massive impact. I don't think we're suddenly going to have 52 carts registered for Trackhouse, but this is the right move. This adds some enthusiasm, some juice back into the series. And you know what? Like, as much as we talked about them kind of needing a jolt, I think this is what they needed to continue building USPKS as a national brand as they head forward into the rest of their season, which, again, like we mentioned earlier, in my opinion, the best schedule that we have on the national calendar.
Oh, yeah. Alex?
This is how you do it. I mean, this is how you get it done. I know we talked about it a couple episodes ago, and they responded in a really big way. I mean, this is how you do it. I know we discussed how entries were low in X30, and they have been for a bit now. If you want to have a chance to bring these guys in and incentivize more people to join X30, because right now that's the biggest talking point, right? Is just why go to X30 when you can just run KA? It's more, I don't know, there's more entries, right? It's more fun as a racer. That's kind of like the argument that I've heard from a lot of the guys that drive an X30. This is how you do it. I mean, like Emery said, there's a chance that if we had 50 entries at one of these USPKS races for a single event, you're telling me you can win 10 grand for one race? That's incredible. Now, do I think we're going to hit 50? Probably not. But are we going to most likely guarantee have more entries than Daytona? Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind that we're going to see an increase in entries. How many? We don't know. But again, now all of a sudden, even 20 carts, you have a decent payout to win the race. 30, 40, 50. This is worth it for a lot of these drivers who feel like they have a chance, right? And it's worth it even if you feel like you're a guy that's in the mid pack, because now all of a sudden it pays down low enough that you have a chance to go out there and make some money. Are you going to turn a profit if you finish, outside the top 5 and still make a little bit of money? No. I mean, I don't know how much some of these guys in, the more midfield level are paying for a weekend, but you're not going to turn a profit probably finishing 6th, 7th, 8th. But for the guys that are finishing the top 5, there's an argument now. If they're paying next to nothing or nothing, all of a sudden you're for sure making a profit. You're making money, right? And so again, this is what pro racing is all about. This is how you separate the pros from just the regular classes that are trying to go out there and be pro. This is how you incentivize guys who are ready for pro but don't want to make the jump to get into pro. This is what it's all about. X30 pro racing, money on the line, lots of it. So, again, kudos to USPKS. This is how you respond, and this is how you do it. This is how you get it done and make a pro class a pro class.
Yeah, I really think it's awesome. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they said this is going to be the prize structure for the next 3 rounds moving forward. So I think, that's even better. That's just great to see the change, to see the one out of it. I think that's awesome. The prize, everybody loves money. We live in an expensive sport. It's not easy to go racing in karting because it's pricey. So I think giving back a little bit to the teams, to the drivers, I think it's awesome. Not much else to say. So, hey, huge, I would say, for what we're seeing now. I know, Emery, you broke it down as well with that, but that's the first part of setting the grid. Moving forward, this was awesome as well. This is to stars this weekend, and mandatory donuts on Sunday. Shifter class must do donuts. 500 donuts given away from Duncan on Sunday. That's awesome. Sadly, I'm on a diet, and I'm glad I'm not going to be there. So great for me. And
More for me.
hey, more for Alex. And this is awesome as well. That they went on social media and they had choice words in the caption, which was awesome. It was amazing. And yeah, this is great. Like, mandatory donuts, awesome. And the tradition lives on with Duncan on Sunday. You can see my shirt. The back says donuts are for winners. I think this is great for the master shifters and for our pro shifters.
Absolutely. I mean, there's guys in Skitchy Barnes was going to do donuts if he won either way. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference for a lot of the shifter guys, but it's a nice touch. I really like that they've embraced kind of the culture, even if it means that Christian's trying to get us demonetized on our own podcast. The culture that Stars has built has been phenomenal. I mean, if you think of donuts now, you think of Stars, you think of Sunday at Stars, and that in itself is a big win for the series. And, I think with Mateus Morgado coming to Shifter, we're going to have AJ versus Mateus. There's a lot of intriguing storylines in that class to bring in the added element, the added kind of thrill of donuts, so to speak. It's a big boost for the class. And as well as that, too, it's year 2 of Pro Show. We have a full-blown show on the docket. I think that Stars is looking up with this. And, hey, I'm never going to complain about free donuts. I might also be on a bit of a diet because, karting weight, you gotta be careful on that one. But still, I mean, hey, a donut or two here and there from Duncan, 500 of them. It's impressive stuff, and I love
A
what
donut
Stars
or
is doing.
2, 3 or 4, or maybe 5 or 6, 7
Listen,
or 8.
I'll bring you some Emery to the booth, all right? Because you're not going to turn them down. No one in there is going to turn them down. But there, to me, which was it the winter series that Formal won when he didn't burn it down? And I think it was this year, and he didn't burn it down.
Yeah, but that's different. That's more of like a preseason, I think, in my eyes.
More of a reason to burn it down.
Yeah, but it's
Burn
like
it down.
It wasn't
not your engine.
It wasn't his car. It wasn't his
like
engine.
not your car.
Donuts. I love it. I know
Hey.
Stars is all about doing cool stuff, and this is how you do it. I mean, again, I don't think it changes a whole lot because usually the guys do donuts, and usually Danny does donuts, and usually he does real good donuts. But I know I kind of gave him a tough time, I guess, in the interview of like, you got to burn it down here for us. I understand, wasn't his stuff, and so he didn't want to do it, but you got to do donuts, especially when, this is it. It's Sunday, main event, burn them down. There's nothing better. There's nothing better. It's really the only go-kart you could do donuts in anyways. I mean, good luck. And I've seen people try in other engine packages.
Holly tried it on OKN at the end of
Have fun, get ready to learn stalling. But you got to do it in Shifter. And so I love this. I forget, was there like, if you don't do a donut,
Yeah. I'm getting there. So this was the exact caption they posted on April 1st. And I'm just going to read it here. We know what you might be thinking, but this is not a April Fool's post. If you win one of the KZ categories at the opening round of 2025 Stars Championship Series presented by at Mazda Motorsports next weekend, and you neglect to do a proper celebration for the fans, you're not taking anything home with you, period. We're not even joking. We'll keep all your bleep trophies, championship points, offset, sport gloves, all of it. You know why? Because Sundays are for donuts and donuts are for winners. Our friends at Duncan will also be dropping off 500 donuts for everyone on Sunday because tradition is important. We love you, Stars fam. See you next week. So that's awesome. Anything else to add? Nothing else. We move.
Amazing.
And it's blank. So
I told you this pre-show.
sorry, that's my mistake.
Incredible.
All right, boys. I guess we had a lot of discussion. I think pre-show this week more than others, kind of talking about the prize, the incentives, and I really love what Stars is doing. But there are some stuff, obviously, with what we saw last year, and kind of it's something that I guess we talked about. We talked about USPKS, their prize giving, and then we move forward into this weekend on what you have. Obviously, great partnerships with Mazda and with Lucas Oil, which I think are great. Which is why OKN-J is now in the pro show. So let's hop into that as well, Emery. We put out a poll earlier today of whether we think OKN-J should be part of the pro show class. 42% of you said yes, and the 58% of you said no. So we're diving right into that. And boys, obviously, we talked about this pre-show on what the pro show should be, what it should mean, whether or not the junior class should be a part of it. I'm going to go last, and I'm going to take volunteers to go first here, Alex or Emery.
I'll go first. There's a couple of ways you can go about this, right? Should it be a pro show class? Well, then you have to look at what is the definition of a pro class. Well, for me, the pro guys, you got to be making money in some way, right? In some way, to me, my definition is it varies from everybody. You got to be making money somehow, whether you are racing for money or you are a paid driver under the tent, even down to if you are paying nothing for the tent but also making nothing. At least you're not paying for your ride. You're pretty much a pro at that point, right? Like, people are valuing you as a driver enough to race for their team. Now, that being said, the state of karting now, from a lot of the teams and drivers that I've spoken to, there's pretty good opportunities all the way down to micro that I've seen drivers get rides, maybe not for free, but at a pretty high discount. So then that's where all of a sudden the definition of pro maybe shifts, right? Because in my opinion, when you look further and further down the order, I mean, at some point you have to draw the line on where pro is, right? You're not going to have a pro micro, pro mini, pro junior, right? So all of a sudden my definition then changes. Well, there's got to be money on the line now. You got to be making money. And for me, that's where OKN-J falls slightly outside of that, but not too far. And I think this is good for the class because it is no question the last 2 years, there's been some problems with that class. I'd say entertainment value-wise, not to the fault of the drivers, but there's just been some problems figuring out the motor. A lot of reeds were blown last year. Just races that came down to 2 or 3 drivers, right? When we started a race with 10 or more. So that is where, okay, why would you want to enter OKN-J? Just go run KA Junior. Well, if you make it a pro show class and you get more eyeballs on the class, now it incentivizes these young kids who are trying to grow funding, trying to just grow their brand, and try out this OKN-J package. It's more worth their while. So for me, should it be a pro show class? No. Can I see why it is a pro show class? Yes.
Very well spoken, Alex. I mean, I look at this, and my first instinct when we were first talking about the discussion pre-show was there are 11 and 12-year-old kids that are going to be racing this. They're kids that 2 years ago were racing micro that have really hardly any high level karting experience that are going to be thrust into the scene of a pro show where they're kind of on the main card, so to speak, the main fights of the weekends. And that in itself, from the simplistic view, I'd argue is not good optics. And if it had stopped just there, I would say the label of pro show, well, how can an 11 or a 12-year-old kid that has still not driven a senior class, still is driving in limited fields, be considered a pro? That's taking the name at face value. That's looking at it from the face equation. However, I think there's a lot more nuance to this discussion that needs to be had that, quite frankly, isn't necessarily something that gets discussed throughout the karting paddock. And that is ultimately Stars has taken a very forward-centric approach with their approach to prize structure and their approach to sort of building classes in recent years. They've been heavy on the B2B sponsorships, heavy on the B2B prize giving opportunities with Lucas Oil on the docket, with Mazda on the docket, with their partnerships with Offset, even stuff like that. Like their price structure is very heavily incentivized on leveraging the different partnerships they have. And those partnerships inherently provide opportunities to younger drivers. Because last year, it was a point of contention for a lot of people that, hey, the two drivers that won their scholarship prizes that had prize giving opportunities in James Overbeck and AJ Myers, objectively, no disrespect to either of them. I mean, obviously, AJ Myers, a staple of the karting paddock at this point, one of the most successful American shifter drivers over the last 2 decades. AJ's not going into professional racing. That prize structure holds limited personal value to him. To a lesser degree, same thing goes for James Overbeck, who at this point is already in college, has kind of had a career off of KA stuff. And the same thing to Pauly Massimino as well. Stars' 3 biggest championship winners in 2024, I would say all are more likely than not karting lifers, for better or for worse. And so by shifting OKN-J into the pro show categories to open up the opportunities to leverage certain partnerships that they have, if nothing else, it fits in line with the kind of brand development that Stars has done in recent years. They've been very forward thinking when it comes to leveraging those partnerships. They've been putting a focus in on the younger drivers. They were the first one to adopt the OKN platform in the first place, and they're adopting the OKN-J. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to kind of continue what they've done with the brand. And I do think that this is a step forward. Now, I will say, with that being said, with me agreeing with a lot of what they've done in terms of highlighting the class, giving it more exposure, providing the opportunity for these young kids to kind of continue to develop and continue to kind of be a feature point of their series, there is a point where I think it goes a little bit too far, where they're in the same kind of weekend format. They're under the same sort of scrutiny as the OKM Pro drivers and the Pro Shifter drivers. Inevitably, people like me that are going to look at it right away are going to be like, look, we've got a class that last year we had a race where 5 separate drivers stalled or blew reads out of 7. We have a class that objectively provided the most boring racing of any class last year on the main docket. And so there needs to be more work in terms of developing the class and developing the engine package, or else people on the outside are going to look at this as an overall flop because of those reasons, because of the lack of parity and because of kind of the drivers inevitably having more to work through. But if you get past the pro label, if you get past the sort of product that gets put out at its current moment, I think it's the right idea from Stars. I just think it's going to take time to develop the class and take time to develop it into a class that's worthy of a pro label. And who knows if it gets there, but I can at least understand Stars' rationale behind it. Caleb, you're muted.
Apologies. I said that was awesome, and I think you said everything I wanted to say and probably more, but I agree with every single point that you made there, and I think you worded that a lot better than I did, than I would have as well. But it's kind of like you said, all right. To sum up what you were saying, it's smart adding them into the pro show with the incentive from Lucas Oil and from the incentive in Mazda, and I think that's valuable to KA Junior, to maybe even KA Senior, with some of the younger drivers moving up, giving them a shot in the Mazda shootouts, as well as Lucas Oil giving them shots in that. But when you look at OKN Stars and pro stars, where it's not the same for an AJ Myers, for Pauly Massimino, who, Pauly's making a business out of karting. He doesn't need to go up to cars. He doesn't need to go to the Mazda shootout. It's the same thing with AJ, right? He's in his 20s, has a full-time job. And again, that's not something that he's kind of looking forward to. And I think that makes a lot more sense when you look at, OKN-J and your KA juniors. So now we've talked about this a lot, right? Stars obviously has different incentives, but the pro guys, quote unquote, aren't getting paid yet. Do we think that's the right solution here, fellas, moving forward with the pro guys, or do we think finding a different way to incentivize those guys?
Yeah, I think quite honestly, it's not the right way forward. But I also think that Stars has kind of built out their prize model this way, and it's like, I mean, the for this to work out long term, OKN or OKN-J, one of the two has to build out forward. I think in OKN, the class naturally caters towards the younger drivers, whether it be because of weight requirement or simply because drivers that are older tend to move on towards the shifter or kind of building into their own platform. So I think that, like, in itself, the class structure of OK and OKN-J are going to lend itself towards those shootout requirements. I think it would be a good idea to kind of split the structure, take a lot of those prize incentives that they've been able to develop with their corporate partners on the OKN-J and OKN side, and maybe you focus on having that as kind of like the ladder, the carts to cars path, right? And you can still highlight those guys because they're still superstars in their sport. They're still success stories for the Stars Championship Series. You can look back in 5 years and be like, yeah, this guy that raced in OKN-J and OKN has made it up to Formula Cars or into NASCAR. And this guy on the right that raced against him is now one of the fixtures of our shifter series. There's room for both. I think you can focus on a more cars incentive focus on the two OKN classes. I do think pro shifter at some point is going to need money, or else it's going to fall behind the flagship classes for USPKS and for SCUSA. Because when you look at what USPKS just threw out on the docket, I mean, up to $32,000 in prize opportunities for the X30 guys. What SCUSA's done with the shifter program and the winner circle and the overall prize money that they've been bringing out for Pro Tour and for Super Nationals for years, that is going to be hard to overcome in building as stacked of a shifter field as possible. And the numbers bear itself out. You know, Stars shifter has come a long way in Pro Stars over the last few years. There's still work to be done. And I think in order for it to reach that capability, you need the money. But OKN, if you can build out the class, if you can get the numbers, which is a whole separate discussion, then I think that's where you still have room for the partnerships. You still have room for Mazda, for Lucas Oil to continue doing the outstanding things that they do.
I'm going to take this a slightly different approach because I agree with everything Emery said, and I don't want to have to repeat. I think there's a really big misconception on, and I'll throw myself in that mix of like, oh, these pro guys need money. And I hear that from a lot of people, but there's not a whole lot of, logic that follows that. Okay, these pro guys got to make money. USPKS just threw out what could be $32,500 if they got to 50 entries. It's a lot of money on a weekend where a lot of these series, I don't think people understand, like, they're not swimming in money, right? Like, it is hard to make money in this business. As anybody who's raced, been a part of a team or owned a team, or maybe even ran a series would probably know that it is a difficult business to make money. And so when you ask a series, hey, can you put out some money? It's easier said than done. So I think those stars at some point need to put money on the line. Absolutely. And I think it's going to happen because you look at the competition that Stars now has. I don't want to say competition, but the competing series, right? You look at USPKS, you look at SCUSA, the main two that are competing with Stars in terms of that national level, national caliber drivers, they're putting money on the line. And now USPKS really put their foot down, and they're putting a lot of money on the line for X30 to try to grow that class. The upper hand, I'd say, in a way that Stars has, is that they're the only national series running OKN and OKN-J. Now, like Emery said, you got to grow the class before you can go out there and put money on the line. You can't put money on the line when you're bringing in 7-10 drivers for an OKN-J field and, maybe 15 in an OKN Stars class. But if you can grow that and grow that engine package, now it incentivizes promoters, sponsors to put some money on the line on top of whatever incentivized deal they already got. In the Mazda's case, you get a ticket into the Mazda shootout. I still think it's a cool opportunity for a lot of these guys, whether you're AJ Myers and you're getting up there in the age, I guess you could say, for AJ, and maybe it's not worth it for him. It's still really cool. It's still a really cool opportunity. For Overbeck, he's young enough. I know he's in college, but he's young enough to where like it's worth it for him to go out there and maybe chase that car dream. But there needs to be at some point money on the line. But I'm going to say this, it is a lot tougher to just go out there and do it, right? So I think what Stars has done is great. I think they're doing a really good job in, allowing us to have creative freedom to make the pro show as cool and as badass as it can possibly be, to help Stars do cool stuff. And I think, again, this is a 2 to 3, maybe longer year model of when this grows, it's going to be huge. And then you can expect potentially promoters and sponsors to go out there and actually put money on the line. But right now, it's easier said than done to just go out there and say, let's put some money on the line for these pro guys, and maybe we lose money, but hey, they're making money now. At some point, it's still business at the end of the day, right? So that's the tough part on Stars' end. Do I agree with everything you've said, Emery? And do I think pro guys deserve money? Yeah, it goes back to the definition I gave 10 minutes ago. To be a pro, you got to be earning money in some way possible, right? But it is still tougher to do than what a lot of people, I think, believe.
Yeah, and to kind of reiterate what you said there, Alex, I think the coolest thing about it is when you look at last year in the pro shows if you want to say had and that we did try to have, I think the best one by far, and talking to Christian, talking to Joe, was the one that we had at Night Fight. Alex, I think you were there as well, right? You were there
directing.
I think you were directing, but like the entire show that we had at Night Fight, and I was standing next to Christian on the start finish straight. He was like, "Damn, it took us 4 tries to get this right, but this is badass. Like, this is awesome." And I would have to completely agree, like, with the growth of it, like the show aspect of it. I think that's great for this big vision in karting that we kind of want to get to. And we've talked a lot internally and what we think it can get to. I had this conversation with Alan Rudolph before we had the Pro Tour. I hit his place and he was like, man, motocross is this big show. Like the first time I went to a motocross race, a supercross race, he was like, how do we get karting to this point? How do we get karting to be as big of a spectacle as supercross is and to what that is and to get it to that level of show? And I think we're on the right track with what we saw last year. And I think this year, Stars is a great initiative as well. I think for Jarsakrak and a couple of other guys are going to the local school in the county and bringing kids out to watch the show. So I think the whole aspect of it and bringing new faces, new eyes onto the sport, I think that's cool. I think, the pro show stuff was cool. And I think we're on the right track. But again, reiterating what my two comrades here said, I should say, it's great, right? But when you look at the supercross stuff, you just need that little bit of it, like incentive, and that to me, I think is pay. And I think the point that Emery had with OKN is great. We need to grow that class. We need to grow OKN-J. And I think even this year, OKN-J is looking a lot bigger than we had last year. I believe 20. I could be wrong, but I have heard that there's like about 20 drivers in OKN-J. So that is kind of growing. I think OKN as well is kind of same as we saw last year with about 20. And then the pros, right? Seeing the pro class that we had 2 weeks ago at SCUSA to what we have now, it's, you kind of cut it in half. But again, you just need that last little bit, I think. And that being said, I really think we're on the right track. I think Stars is on the right track. I think the big three are on the right track, right? But it's honestly great, and we'll see that growth, I think, in the next year and with internal discussion and whatever. But I think that's the last thing we're missing here on what's really been a huge growth for a series that's still super, super young, boys.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it all will take time to kind of formalize. Like ultimately, I'm sure Stars in a perfect world would love to have money on the table, would love to have money going towards the pro shifter guys. But like Alex mentioned, like the financing of this sport inevitably gets really tight, especially for series owners, especially when you're trying to balance putting on a good show for everybody, paying for a broadcast, paying for all these amenities that your 250 plus entries that you have heading into this weekend, stacked support categories are going to have, and also making sure that you have the pro guys show up and have their opportunities. So it's a difficult balance. I think that Stars has done the right thing. They've been very willing to embrace the pro show model. And of course, we've moved it to the front of the to the front of the docket this weekend. It's a new format. I think it's an improved format overall. And, Stars wants to grow racing. We want to grow racing. USPKS and SCUSA wants to grow racing. At the end of the day, everyone has the same overall goal with this puzzle. It's just certain series have different pieces going in at different times. And, the elementary school initiative that I know BJR as well as Xander has mentioned as well. I mean, for me, I think that's a really cool thing. And it leverages, again, kind of the community aspect and growing from the outside as opposed to trying to grow from a limited pool. Because ultimately, as someone that went to school in Cabarrus County and lived 4 miles from the racetrack, had I known that go-karts were racing 5 minutes away from my house and I could go and see this cool sport for free, I'd be over the moon for it. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out this weekend. I think it's yet another cool initiative from Stars. I think we've seen the influx of OKN-J, the development, the building of that class, as well as another thing that Stars has kind of put their foot forward to improve the future of the sport. And we might not agree with every single thing that they're doing in terms of the prize structure. There might be some little tweaks here and there that need to happen over the coming couple of years and building out classes certain ways. But as a whole, we're all trying to grow the sport. Stars has done a phenomenal job to this point of growing their series to the point where it's even a question of what they can do going forward to make it even better. And I think that ultimately, if we continue to work with each other and continue to kind of find these fine-tuning points, it's going to be a phenomenal product. And I'm excited to see what the Pro Show and what Stars has in store for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I think I'm excited. I know you boys are definitely excited to get back. I'm excited to watch it from a different perspective this weekend, and from, I would say, as a fan, right? Not being there and working, as fun as it is, it's going to be different for me this weekend. But I can't wait to sit down, I guess, and just watch karting and watch a race. I think that's going to be cool, and I'm excited to see it all. I'm excited to see how the racing is going to pan out. And while we're on that topic of racing, and what are we kind of thinking this weekend, boys? Because we saw obviously a little preview. I should say a big preview 2 weeks ago. We have Gavin Bailiff returning with a number 3. Billy Musgrave not here this weekend. But you have Mateus, AJ, Ian, Jay Irwin returning. Charlie Stein's coming off hot. What are we kind of thinking? And I guess we can give a little bit of predictions or maybe picks even. We haven't done picks in a really long time, it feels like. But what are we thinking? OKN as well. Let's start with Alex here.
I think Ian Quinn wins in Pro Shifter, and I think Mateus and AJ at least see each other on the racetrack. That's all I'll say. No, I actually think. I mean, Ian Quinn was fast here last year.
Oh yeah.
I think this is going to be his bounce back race. This is my hot take. I think Ian Quinn wins the race. It's cool to have Mateus at a Stars event, and obviously for the storyline of AJ versus Mateus, that is like all you could ask for. Even if it was just those two on the racetrack, right? Like that is what you want to see. I know they left off some fireworks at Orlando, and I'm excited. I am really, really excited. In terms of OKN-J, like you guys mentioned, better entries already to start the year than we had last year. So that's always really cool. I know we have some new faces to OKN, so I'm excited. Again, just growing the package, good for the sport. And Charlotte races really well. Like we have talked about it. I feel like every time we go to Charlotte, is this a good racing track? And then the answer is always yes. And we see some people disagree, and then the product always delivers. So this is a great racing track. I think Jay Irwin kind of took away the idea of it being a good shifter track because he dominated so much. But nonetheless, I do think it's a good shifter track. I think it's a great OKN track. I think it's an even better KA track. So just the racing as a whole, I'm excited to get to Charlotte. I think it's gonna be badass.
Okay, so while we're on this topic, I do want to talk about some of the entries here. Some cool ones. James Overbeck running OKN this weekend. Finnegan Bailiff as well returns to OKN. I think the last time that I remember him running OKN was at MCC 2024. No, 2023. Yeah, championship weekend. 2023 was the last time, dude. That was an Emery style kind of out of the chamber. That was awesome.
I did not know
Caleb.
that. So
Great job, Caleb. Hey, round of applause for me. I balled Emery here on this one. There you go. There you go. Hey, I guess I can do my job. Jacob Kolar also running this weekend, which I think is cool. Obviously, Pauly's returning, and a lot of new faces, which I'm excited to meet. On a different side of it. But
Jacob,
I think
if you're watching this, Jacob, run shifter. I was talking to your dad, Yuri. I was there at the track like a month ago when you were testing shifter, and you're supposed to run shifter this year, and now you're running OKN and X30, and it's really cool. But run shifter. We need more shifter drivers. You're a good driver. You could rip a shifter. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, perhaps, but if you want to talk about it, I think what do they call him, Jimothy? James Overbeck. I think he's going to be pretty impressive in OKN. And then when you look at shifter, I'm excited. I'm gonna sit down on my couch. I probably won't kick my feet up. I'm gonna be lean forward in kind of game mode, watching that Pro Stars race. Hopefully we see some good action. I think this track is gonna suit Mateus a lot because of how fast and flowy it is. I think it has maybe a European look to it, I would say, with the chicanes. So I think Mateus would be my pick to go out there and win. But you can't not think about last year. Talk about Jay Irwin. Talk about Ian Quinn. They were quick. So I think the Burrells are going to be the ones to beat here this weekend.
yeah, I mean, taking a guy that won by almost 10 seconds and betting against him is a little bit of a difficult proposition. But he also has a world championship teammate coming in, Mateus Morgado. I'm excited to see what Mateus does at Stars for the first time. I still think it's going to be Jay Irwin. I feel like he was very close at Speed Sports to beating Mateus outright. He's shown a lot of pace, progressively gotten better. And I mean, with how strong he was at this track, I think it'll be tighter this year for sure. I mean, you have 4 or 5 guys in the fold that I could really see running up at the front of the field in Pro Shifter. I think that ultimately that class, while not quite as loaded as we maybe would have hoped for on the pure entry side of things, you have a very stacked field between AJ, between Vincenzo, Jay Irwin, Talon Yackel back again for another year. We talked to Ian about that with him teaming up with the Stell Motorsports boys. And then Gavin Bailiff, again, like you mentioned, coming off the big win in Houston. The shifter field's going to be fun. OKN as well. You guys kind of touched on pretty much all of the main guys. A couple other guys that I feel like could be worth mentioning as well. Wesley Gundler back again, showed some pretty strong pace last year before having a turn 1 incident. Satvik Sarathi, the last time we saw him, or at least one of the last times we saw him, was putting it on pole at Orlando. He makes his OKN debut. It will be interesting to see how he goes along. But ultimately, I mean, I think this is one where we saw last year, Pauly against Nick Terlecki. Nick, unfortunately, not racing this weekend, this year to this point. But on Pauly's side of things, I mean, it's a home track for him, less than an hour away from his house. I think it's going to be hard to beat him, but I think Diego Ramos had a lot of pace last year. And with a full year to kind of develop the package, last year was his and PSL's first race on OKN. I think this year they get it done and make it a Burrell sweep between the two headline categories of the Stars Championship Series.
Hey, well, there you go. I saw this come in as well. I don't know about racing. I would definitely do some driving this weekend. I think Friday. I'm heading up to Houston, so it's been, I think, 6-7 months since I've driven. So this is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do some driving this weekend. So that's nice for a change. That's nice for a change. I'll be out there Friday. Hopefully there'll be no flipping going on because it's not gonna be my chassis. So I'll keep it all 4 wheels on the ground. But yeah, I'm gonna do some driving this weekend. I don't know about racing, but we'll see. Alistair says we're gonna need more donuts. I won't. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, there you go. If you know, you know. Shout out Al. But yeah, I'm not gonna be there this weekend. I'm gonna miss you guys. Alex is gonna be there. If you guys see him, let him know how short he is.
I'm glad you put that on yourself.
Enough said, boys. It's been a pleasure. I'm gonna miss you guys this weekend, but I'm excited. I'm excited. You guys are gonna be texting me, I think, every 5 minutes. Let me know what's going on.
No.
What the paddock's saying, what they thought about Grid Talk episode number 49.
Hey, next week's a big one.
Yeah,
It's episode 50.
yo, you should.
We got to step it up, man. We got to
I'm almost 21. We should have a party on here. That'd be great. That's a joke. That's never gonna happen.
Crazy, bro.
Wait. When's your birthday? What day?
May 11th.
That's like a month away.
Yeah, it's not even close.
It don't matter.
Okay, so your birthday's on a Sunday.
No, it's not. It's on a Saturday. Mother's Day's on the Sunday.
It's on Sunday because I graduate on.
Yeah, it's
the
literally
10th.
on a
It's
Sunday.
I graduate on the 10th.
Are you guys serious?
We'll do a belated birthday grid talk.
Oh man, is it? It is on
Yes,
Sunday. Dang it. It's okay.
Unfortunate.
Mother's Day, so I'll celebrate my mom instead of myself. But yeah, we'll be
Celebrate both.
good. Nah, she gave me life, homie. I don't know what to say. All right, we're wasting time. We just added like 3 unnecessary minutes. Sorry about that, but hey, we'll see you guys this weekend. These boys are going to be live, I believe, Friday, right? You guys are live Friday?
Friday at 10 a.m.
Friday at 10 a.m. Bang. Friday at 10 a.m. Live with everything. And then Saturday, Sunday, we go into racing action. It's going to be exciting. Sad I'm missing it. But, hey, one of the most badass racing series in the country is back this weekend, the Stars Championship Series, opening round, the Queen City Gambit. I'm excited. These boys are excited, and I'm sure all of you guys at home. We thank you guys for joining us on episode number 49. And we'll be at episode 50 come next week. But it's been exciting. Thank you guys for joining us. For myself, Caleb Viesca, Alexander Searle, who was late, tardy. It's okay, though. Life happens. And Emery got into Florida State. Hey, there you go. But that being said, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.